The massive black ship hung in Earth's sky like a dark cloud that refused to move. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizon and watched the alien craft through the main viewscreen. 3 days had passed since the Vulcans first appeared at the edge of the solar system, and nobody on Earth knew what to expect. Jake had seen the emergency broadcasts and the panic in the streets below. World leaders held endless meetings while military forces prepared for the worst, but the aliens had not attacked. They had not demanded surrender or threatened destruction. Instead, they had sent a simple message asking for diplomatic contact. The alien ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. It stretched for miles across the sky, its surface so dark it seemed to absorb light itself. Strange geometric patterns covered its hull, and no visible engines or weapons could be seen. Yet somehow everyone who looked at it felt the same thing. This was built by something dangerous. Dr. Lisa Grant stood beside Jake on the bridge, her scientific equipment recording everything about the approaching vessel. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, she had spent her career studying life on other worlds. But this was different. This was intelligence, and it was coming to meet them. The first shuttle descended from the alien ship at exactly noon. It moved silently through the atmosphere, its black surface reflecting nothing. Landing pads had been prepared at the United Nations building in New York, and the world watched as humanity prepared to meet its first alien visitors. Jake's ship was positioned in orbit to monitor the meeting. He had been chosen for this mission because of his experience with first contact protocols, though those had only involved discovering new human colonies. This was something entirely new. The alien shuttle landed without a sound. No engines fired, no landing gear extended. It simply settled onto the platform like a bird landing on a branch. The watching crowds fell silent as a section of the hull dissolved away, revealing the interior. The first Vulcan to emerge was clearly their leader. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with a build that spoke of incredible strength. His skin was dark and seemed to be made of scales that shifted color slightly in the sunlight. But it was his eyes that caught everyone's attention. They were yellow and moved constantly, tracking everything around him with the focus of a hunting animal. Dr. Grant watched the footage from the bridge and made careful notes. The alien's posture was confident but not threatening. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, but there was something else there. Something that made her think of a Volf meeting another Volf. Cautious but not afraid, more Vulcans emerged from the shuttle. Each one was built like their leader, tall and powerful with those same predatory eyes. They wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor, dark metal that seemed to flow like liquid. Sharp claws extended from their fingers, and when they spoke to each other, Lisa could see rows of serrated teeth. Everything about them screamed danger. Yet they made no aggressive moves. They waited patiently as human diplomats approached, their heads turning slightly to track movement but their bodies remaining still. Ambassador Carl Peterson led the human delegation. He had been chosen for his experience with difficult negotiations, but nothing had prepared him for this. As he approached the alien leader, he felt like he was walking toward a sleeping tiger, not because he feared attack, but because he recognized something in those yellow eyes that he had seen in human eyes before. The Vulcan leader stepped forward and spoke in a voice like distant thunder. The translation device he wore rendered his words in perfect English. "I am Thraka, voice of the Vulcan people. We come seeking to know those who share our nature." Peterson paused at those words, "Share our nature." What did that mean? He introduced himself and the human delegation, noting how the aliens listened with complete attention. Their eyes never stopped moving, never stopped watching, but there was no hostility in their gaze. The initial talks were held in a secure conference room. Peterson sat across from Thraka while other diplomats and aliens flanked them. The conversation began with basic questions about each species' history and intentions. But something strange happened as they talked. The Vulcans seemed to already know things about humanity that they should not have known. "Your species evolved as hunters," Thraka said, his translator making his words sound almost musical. "You tracked prey across great distances, used tools and cooperation to bring down animals much larger than yourselves. This is known to us." Peterson felt a chill. How could they know that? You've been watching us, he said. We have been learning, Thraka replied. When we discovered your world, we expected to find prey. Instead, we found something else, something we recognized. The conversation continued for hours, with both sides sharing information about their worlds and cultures. The Velkans described their homeworld as a harsh place where only the strongest survived. They had evolved as pack hunters using intelligence and cooperation to become the apex predators of their planet, but it was their social structure that fascinated Peterson. The Velkans valued strength and cunning, but they also prized loyalty and the willingness to sacrifice for the pack. They had concepts of honor and duty that sounded remarkably similar to human ideals. The breakthrough came when tensions briefly escalated over territorial discussions. Peterson's security detail had remained in the background, but when voices were raised, they instinctively moved to protective positions. Their movements were subtle but professional, hands moving toward concealed weapons with practiced efficiency. The Velkans didn't react with alarm or aggression. Instead, Thraka's eyes gleamed with what could only be described as approval. He made a gesture with his clawed hand, and his translator rendered it as worthy pack behavior. Your guardians move well, Thraka said, his voice carrying a note of respect. They position themselves to protect without threatening. This shows wisdom. Peterson realized something profound was happening. The Velkans weren't evaluating humanity as potential prey or even as equals. They were assessing humans the way one dangerous predator evaluates another when determining whether to fight or coexist. The meeting ended with agreements to continue talks and establish cultural exchange programs. As the Velkans returned to their shuttle, Peterson found himself shaking hands with Thraka. The alien's grip was firm but not crushing, and those yellow eyes held his gaze with unmistakable respect. We will speak again, Carl Peterson, Thraka said. There is much to learn from those who hunt as we hunt. As the alien shuttle lifted silently into the sky, Peterson stood on the landing pad and watched it go. Something had changed in that conference room. First contact had gone better than anyone had dared hope, but not for the reasons they had expected. The Velkans had come to Earth looking for prey and found something else entirely. They had found kindred spirits, and Peterson had the strange feeling that humanity had just met its match in the most unexpected way possible. Dr. Lisa Grant floated through the corridors of the Luna Research Station, her mind racing with anticipation. 2 weeks had passed since the first diplomatic meetings on Earth, and now she had been granted something unprecedented: direct access to Velkan scientists for behavioral studies. The research station orbiting the moon had been chosen as neutral ground, where both species could interact without the political tensions of Earth-based meetings. Her counterpart was a Velkan researcher named Zefka, and Lisa had no idea what to expect. The footage from the diplomatic meetings had shown the aliens to be imposing and clearly dangerous, but there had been something else in their behavior that intrigued her. They moved and acted like predators, but not like mindless killers. There was intelligence there, and purpose, and something that almost looked like respect. When they observed humans, the meeting room had been specially constructed with adjustable furniture to accommodate both species. Lisa arrived first and spent several minutes checking her recording equipment and reviewing her notes. She had prepared presentations on human evolution, social behavior, and cultural development, expecting the usual alien dismissal of humanity. As a young and primitive species, Zefka arrived precisely on time. The Velkan scientist was smaller than the diplomats Lisa had seen on the broadcasts, though still impressively tall and muscular. His scales were a lighter shade than Thraka's, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the artificial lighting. Those same predatory yellow eyes studied Lisa with intense focus, but there was something different in his gaze. Curiosity, perhaps, or even excitement. Dr. Lisa Grant, Zefka said through his translation device, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate in the room. I am honored to share knowledge with one who studies the behavior of thinking beings. Lisa felt a thrill at those words. Not primitive beings or lesser species, but thinking beings. There was respect in that phrase, and it gave her hope that this exchange might be more productive than she had dared imagine. She began with the standard presentation on human evolution, starting with humanity's ancestors and working forward through the development of intelligence and civilization. She expected polite attention at best, but Zefka listened with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. His eyes never left her face, and occasionally he made deep rumbling sounds that the translator rendered as recognition sounds. When Lisa reached the section on humanity's rise from persistence hunters, Zefka's reaction was electric. The Velkin scientist leaned forward, his claws clicking against the table surface, and made a series of rapid sounds that the translator struggled to keep up with. "Your people were endurance predators," Zefka said, his translated voice carrying clear excitement. "You ran your prey to exhaustion across great distances. You used tools and cooperation to bring down animals many times your size. You learned to track and plan and work as unified hunting groups." Lisa nodded, surprised by his knowledge and enthusiasm. "Yes, that's correct. Our ancestors were persistence hunters who could outlast almost any prey animal. But I'm curious how you know so much about human evolution." Zefka made what might have been a smile, though it was difficult to tell with his alien features. "Because my people followed the same path. Allow me to share our history with you." What followed was the most fascinating presentation Lisa had ever witnessed. Zefka described the Velkin homeworld as a harsh place where survival required not just strength, but intelligence and cooperation. The early Velkins had been pack hunters who learned to work together to bring down prey that no individual could handle alone, but it was more than just hunting tactics. As Zefka spoke, Lisa realized that Velkin society had developed along remarkably similar lines to human civilization. They valued courage and strength, but also cunning and loyalty. They had concepts of honor and duty that were remarkably familiar, even if expressed in alien terms. "Your people and mine," Zefka said, his voice carrying something that sounded almost like wonder. "We are like rivers that start in different mountains but flow toward the same sea. We learned the same lessons. We made the same choices." Lisa spent the next several hours sharing human cultural records and behavioral studies. She showed footage of humans in crisis situations, soldiers protecting civilians, parents defending children, communities rallying together against external threats. With each example, Zefka became more animated, occasionally making those rumbling recognition sounds. In return, the Velkin scientist shared recordings from his own world. The images were alien, but the behaviors were startlingly familiar. Velkin adults forming protective circles around their young during attacks. Warriors working together with perfect coordination to defend their territory. Communities sharing resources during times of scarcity. The parallels were undeniable and profound. Two species from different worlds had evolved not just similar hunting strategies, but similar social structures and moral frameworks. Both had learned that true strength came not from individual power, but from the ability to work together as a unified group. Meanwhile, in another section of the station, Lieutenant Ryan Carter was having his own moment of recognition. He had been assigned as security for the research mission, a routine posting that had turned into something extraordinary. The Velkins had brought their own security personnel, and Carter found himself face to face with a warrior named Korvac. The alien warrior was massive even by Velkin standards, his armor clearly designed for combat rather than ceremony. But what caught Carter's attention was how Korvac moved. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary display of strength. Every step and gesture spoke of someone who understood violence intimately but used it with precision and purpose. Korvac had observed Carter's daily training routine and approached him afterward. Through the translation device, the conversation was halting and awkward, but the meaning came through clearly. The Velkins had been studying human military footage, analyzing human warfare and combat techniques. "Your warriors fight with pack tactics," Korvac said, his translated voice carrying clear approval. "They protect the weak and support each other. They use tools and terrain and timing. This is how true predators fight." Carter felt a chill run down his spine. There was something in Korvac's tone that spoke of recognition between professional soldiers. The alien wasn't studying human military tactics as an enemy might. He was appreciating them as one warrior appreciates another's skill back on Earth. Historian Dr. Helen Brooks was making discoveries that would change how both species viewed their relationship. The Vulcans had shared extensive cultural records as part of the exchange program, and Helen was analyzing them with growing amazement. Vulcan history was filled with concepts that any human would recognize. They had developed codes of honor that emphasized protecting the pack over individual gain. Their warriors took oaths of service that sounded remarkably similar to human military traditions. Their leaders were chosen based on demonstrated competence rather than inherited status. Most remarkably, they had concepts of justice and mercy that were almost identical to human ideals. Strength was valued, but strength used wrongly was considered the worst form of weakness. True predators, according to Vulcan philosophy, were those who chose when not to hunt. The breakthrough moment came when Zefka shared a collection of recordings that he called response patterns under stress. The footage showed humans reacting to various emergency situations, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, accidents, and other crises. Lisa watched her own species through alien eyes and saw something she had never noticed before. In every situation, humans displayed identical response patterns to what Zefka had shown her of Vulcan behavior. The immediate formation of leadership, hierarchies based on competence, the automatic protection of the vulnerable, the willingness to sacrifice individual safety for group survival, the way both species could coordinate complex actions with minimal communication when lives were at stake. "Do you see it now?" Zefka asked, his yellow eyes gleaming with something that might have been joy. "Your people and mine, we are the same kind of being. We are predators who learn to hunt together. We are pack hunters who became civilized but never forgot what we are." Lisa stared at the recordings and felt the universe shift around her. First Contact hadn't just introduced humanity to an alien species. It had shown them a mirror, reflecting their own nature back at them through alien eyes. The Vulcans hadn't come to Earth looking for slaves or resources or territory. They had come looking for something much rarer, others like themselves. Others who understood that true strength came from choosing when to use it, and true wisdom came from knowing that the deadliest predators were often the most reliable protectors. The recognition was mutual and profound, and it would change everything. The cultural exchange program had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. What began as cautious diplomatic meetings had evolved into something unprecedented. Two apex predator species learning to work together. Captain Jake Morrison found himself at the center of this transformation as he participated in joint training exercises with Vulcan Captain Vorthek aboard the Lunar Research Station. The training began with simple coordination drills. Human and Vulcan crews working side by side to operate unfamiliar equipment, sharing technical knowledge and learning each other's procedures. Jake had expected awkwardness and confusion, but instead he found himself impressed by how quickly both species adapted to each other's methods. Vorthek was a seasoned commander who had led Vulcan exploration fleets for decades. His approach to leadership was remarkably similar to Jake's own style, calm authority backed by proven competence. The alien captain made decisions quickly, but never without considering input from his crew. He protected his people fiercely, but never coddled them. During one particularly complex simulation, Jake watched Vorthek coordinate his team's response to a simulated emergency. The Vulcan captain's tactical thinking was sophisticated and flexible, adapting to changing conditions with the same kind of strategic mind that Jake recognized in the best human commanders. "Your people think like hunters," Vorthek observed after the exercise, his translated voice carrying clear approval. "You see the whole situation, not just the immediate threat. You plan several moves ahead and always keep escape routes open." Jake nodded, feeling a strange sense of kinship with the alien commander. "Your crew moves like they've been working together for years. That kind of coordination takes trust and practice." "Trust must be earned," Vorthek replied. "But once earned, it becomes absolute." This is how pack hunters survive. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Grant was making discoveries that would reshape both species' understanding of themselves. Her research had revealed that humans and Vulcans shared what she had begun calling predator ethics, complex moral systems that balanced individual survival drives with pack loyalty and territorial responsibility. Both species valued courage and cunning, but they also prized the wisdom to know when not to fight. They had developed concepts of honor that emphasized protecting the weak while respecting the strong. Most remarkably, both cultures had learned that true predators were those who chose their battles carefully and fought only when necessary. The breakthrough that changed everything came when a real crisis struck the research station. A massive solar storm erupted from the sun, sending waves of radiation and electromagnetic energy toward the Earth-Moon system. The station's shields held, but the storm damaged critical life support systems and knocked out primary power. Jake was in the command center when the emergency alarms began sounding. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and the air recycling system stuttered to a halt. The station had backup power, but it would only last for 18 hours. Without repairs, everyone aboard would die. The response from both human and Vulcan crews was immediate and identical. There was no panic, no blame, no competition for resources. Instead, both groups fell into coordinated crisis response patterns that seemed almost instinctual. Captain Vorthak appeared in the command center. Within minutes, his crew already mobilizing behind him. "Status report," he demanded, his translated voice cutting through the chaos. Jake quickly outlined the situation. Life support was failing, communications were down, and the shuttle bay doors were sealed by damaged control systems. They had limited time and even more limited options. "My engineers will work on the power systems," Vorthak said without hesitation. "Your people know the station better. They should lead repairs to life support." There was no argument about chain of command or territorial disputes. Both commanders recognized that survival required the best people working on the problems they were most qualified to solve. It was exactly the kind of practical cooperation that pack hunters would use when facing a common threat. Marine Sergeant Nick Torres found himself working alongside Vulcan warriors in the damaged sections of the station. The aliens were incredibly strong and could work in conditions that would be dangerous for humans. While the humans' smaller size allowed them to access areas the Vulcans could not reach, despite language barriers and physical differences, they communicated through gesture and shared understanding of tactical priorities. The Vulcans seemed to intuitively grasp human military hand signals, while Torres quickly picked up on Vulcan pack coordination methods. "Pass the plasma cutter," Torres called out to a Vulcan warrior named Drexka. The alien immediately understood and handed over the tool, then positioned himself to provide cover while Torres worked on the damaged power coupling. Dr. Helen Brooks, monitoring the situation from Earth, noted something remarkable in the emergency response patterns. Both species demonstrated identical stress responses, increased focus, automatic formation of leadership hierarchies based on competence rather than rank, and willingness to sacrifice individual comfort for group survival. Most remarkably, both groups showed the same protective instincts toward perceived weaker members. Human and Vulcan warriors alike moved to shield the research scientists from the more dangerous repair work, creating protective formations around the technical specialists who were working to restore critical systems. Engineer Amy Foster worked alongside a Vulcan technical specialist named Korth to restore the main power grid. The alien's knowledge of energy systems was impressive, but his approach to problem-solving was what truly amazed her. Korth thought like a human engineer, considering multiple solutions and choosing the most efficient path forward. "Your people build things to last," Korth observed as they worked on the damaged power core. "Strong foundations, redundant systems, easy repair access, this shows wisdom." Amy found herself nodding in agreement. "Your ships are built the same way. Everything we've seen suggests your engineers think about long-term reliability and battlefield maintenance." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, two technical specialists from different worlds united by their shared understanding of how things should work. Despite their physical and cultural differences, they found themselves anticipating each other's needs and working with the kind of seamless cooperation typically seen only between longtime partners. The repair work continued for hours, with human and Vulcan crews working side by side throughout the station. There were moments of tension when time pressures mounted, but both species responded to stress in remarkably similar ways. They focused on the work, supported each other without being asked, and maintained discipline even when exhaustion began to take its toll. Dr. Grant found herself in the medical bay, treating injuries sustained during the repair work. She had expected to see competition for medical resources or prioritization based on species loyalty. Instead, she witnessed something that moved her deeply. A young Vulcan engineer named Kess had been injured while working to restore life support. Without hesitation, human medics treated him with the same care they would give to one of their own. Similarly, when human technician Ben Clark was overcome by radiation exposure, Vulcan warriors immediately carried him to safety and stood guard while he received treatment. The crisis reached its peak when the backup power systems began to fail. With only 4 hours of life support remaining, the combined crews made one final coordinated push to restore primary power. Every person on the station, human and Vulcan alike, worked together with desperate efficiency. When the lights finally came back on and the life support systems hummed back to life, both crews collapsed in exhaustion. But something fundamental had changed in the relationship between the two species. They had faced genuine danger together and seen each other respond with courage, competence, and loyalty. Captain Vorthak found Jake in the command center after the crisis had passed. The alien commander looked exhausted but satisfied. "Your people fought well," he said, his translated voice carrying deep respect. "They protected the pack and completed the mission. This is how warriors should behave." Jake nodded, feeling the same sense of respect for the Vulcan crew. "Your people saved us all. They worked like they've been part of our crew for years." "Perhaps," Vorthak replied, "because in all the ways that matter, we are the same kind of being. We are predators who learn to hunt together. And now we have hunted together against death itself." As news of the successful crisis response reached Earth and the Vulcan homeworld, both species began to understand that something unprecedented had occurred. Two apex predator civilizations had not only met peacefully but had bonded in the most fundamental way possible, through shared danger and mutual trust. The recognition that had begun with first contact had evolved into something deeper and more lasting. They were no longer two separate species learning about each other. They were becoming something new, a combined pack that could face any threat together. 6 months had passed since the crisis at Luna Research Station, and the relationship between humans and Vulcans had evolved far beyond anyone's expectations. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Joint Command Vessel Unity, watching combined human and Vulcan fleets conduct their largest military exercise to date. The sight was remarkable. Human destroyers flew in formation with Vulcan cruisers, their different designs somehow complementing each other perfectly. Fighter squadrons mixed both species pilots, executing complex maneuvers that required absolute trust and coordination. What had begun as cautious cooperation had become something much deeper. Admiral Krethka, her Vulcan counterpart, stood beside her observing the same displays. The alien commander was impressive even by Vulcan standards, with battle scars marking his dark scales and eyes that missed nothing. His approach to warfare was sophisticated and brutal when necessary, but always tempered by strategic thinking. That Kate found remarkably familiar. "Your pilots adapt quickly to our formation patterns," Krethka observed, his translated voice carrying clear approval. "They think like pack hunters even in space combat." Kate nodded, watching human and Vulcan fighters weave through a complex attack pattern. "Your people understand our tactical doctrine better than some of our own allies. It's like you've been fighting alongside us for years." The military exercises had revealed something both fascinating and reassuring. Human and Vulcan approaches to warfare were remarkably similar. Both species favored overwhelming force when necessary, strategic patience when advantageous, and absolute commitment to protecting their own. Most importantly, both understood that the best battle was often the one you never had to fight. The peaceful development of this alliance was shattered when long-range scout ships detected something approaching from deep space. The first reports came from automated monitoring stations at the edge of the solar system. Massive energy signatures moving faster than anything either species had ever built, Commander. Luke Harrison was aboard one of the scout vessels when the first clear images arrived. What he saw chilled him to the bone. The approaching fleet was enormous, stretching across space like a dark tide. The ships were organic-looking things that seemed to pulse with their own life, and there were hundreds of them. "Devourers," whispered the Velkin scout commander who shared Harrison's bridge. "We have heard stories from the far reaches of space. They consume entire worlds and leave nothing behind." Intelligence reports began flooding in from both human and Velkin networks. The Devourers were a hive mind species that had been spreading across the galaxy for thousands of years. They arrived at populated worlds, stripped them of all life and resources, then moved on to the next target. No species had ever successfully negotiated with them or driven them away. The response from both humans and Velkins was identical and immediate. There was no debate about whether to stand together, no political maneuvering or attempts to sacrifice one species to save the other. Both had recognized something fundamental in each other, and that recognition demanded absolute loyalty. Admiral Sullivan found herself in emergency session with human and Velkin leadership. The meeting was held aboard the Unity, with representatives from both worlds participating via secure communication links. The discussion was brief and to the point. "The Devourer fleet will reach our system in 3 months," Admiral Krethka reported. "Their advanced scouts have already entered the outer system. They know we are here." General Patricia Hayes, Earth's military commander, studied the tactical displays with grim determination. "How many ships are we facing?" "Current estimates suggest over 400 vessels," replied Velkin Fleet Commander Zortax. "Each one is capable of destroying a city from orbit. Their technology is advanced, and their tactics are proven against dozens of civilizations." The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of what they faced, but Kate noticed something remarkable in that silence. There was no fear, no despair, no discussion of surrender or evacuation. Instead, she saw the same look in every face. Human and Velkin alike, the cold determination of predators preparing to defend their territory. "Then we fight," General Hayes said simply. "All of us together." "Agreed," rumbled Admiral Krethka. "The pack defends its hunting grounds. This is the way." The preparation for war consumed both civilizations. Every shipyard worked around the clock to build new vessels and upgrade existing ones. Human innovation and adaptability merged with Velkin strength and tactical precision to create something neither species could have achieved alone. Commander Harrison worked with Velkin tactical specialist Norvac to develop combined combat doctrines. They discovered that human unpredictability and creative problem-solving meshed perfectly with Velkin pack coordination and overwhelming force tactics. "Your people fight like individuals who become one mind in battle," Norvac observed during a training session. "Each pilot thinks for himself but moves as part of the greater hunt. This confuses enemies who expect either chaos or rigid formation." Harrison nodded, watching mixed squadrons execute a complex attack pattern. "Your warriors understand timing and patience. They don't waste energy on pointless attacks, but when they strike, they hit with everything they have." The psychological warfare aspect proved particularly effective during early skirmishes with Devourer scout ships. Dr. Lisa Grant's analysis showed that the Devourers, accustomed to conquering prey species, were unprepared for the coordinated resistance of 2 apex predator civilizations. "Their hive mind mentality can't adapt quickly enough to our combined tactics," Grant reported during a strategy briefing. "They expect either panicked flight or predictable military response. Instead, they're facing 2 species that fight like pack hunters." The Devourer's first mistake was attempting to divide the human and Velkin forces. They sent negotiation signals to each species separately, offering to spare one world if the other was abandoned. The response was swift and unified. Both species forwarded the messages to each other and prepared joint counterattacks. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Moore had been placed in command of the first integrated training academy, where human and Vulcan military personnel learned to fight as one force. The graduation ceremonies became legendary as young warriors from both species took identical oaths of service and protection. "I swear to defend the pack," the mixed graduates recited in unison, their voices carrying across the academy grounds. "To protect the weak, to stand with my brothers and sisters regardless of their world of birth, and to hunt only when the hunt serves the greater good." The words were the same in both languages, reflecting values that both species had learned through countless generations of evolution. They were the oaths of apex predators who had chosen to use their strength to protect rather than simply to dominate civilian populations. On both worlds responded to the threat with identical determination. Evacuation procedures were organized with military precision, while volunteer defense forces emerged spontaneously in both societies. The sight of human and Vulcan children being evacuated together, protected by mixed species guard units, became a symbol of the bond that had formed between the two civilizations. Engineer Amy Foster found herself working on weapon systems that combined human and Vulcan technology in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The aliens' energy manipulation techniques merged with human engineering precision to create weapons that were both devastating and efficient. "Your people build weapons like tools," observed her Vulcan partner Korth. "Precise, reliable, designed to accomplish specific tasks. Our weapons are built like claws, extensions of the warrior's will. Together we create something more than either alone." The first major battle came when the Devourer advance force reached the asteroid belt. 3 human Vulcan task forces engaged the enemy in running fights among the rocky debris, using hit-and-run tactics that frustrated the aliens' attempts to bring their superior numbers to bear. Captain Jake Morrison commanded one of those task forces, his mixed crew operating with the kind of seamless efficiency that came from shared purpose and mutual trust. Human and Vulcan officers worked side by side on the bridge, their different perspectives and skills combining to create tactical solutions that neither species could have developed alone. "Enemy formation breaking apart," reported Lieutenant Torres from the tactical station. "They're trying to surround us." "Pack response pattern 7, ordered Morrison, knowing that both human and Vulcan crew members would understand immediately. The combined fleet dispersed into small hunting groups, each one focused on isolating and destroying individual enemy vessels. The Devourers found themselves facing something they had never encountered before, prey that fought back with the coordinated fury of apex predators defending their territory. Every attack was met with counterattacks that seemed to anticipate their moves. Every attempt to divide the defenders only revealed new levels of cooperation between the two species. As the battle raged through the outer system, both humans and Vulcans began to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented. 2 apex predator civilizations fighting as one, their combined strength amplified by trust and shared purpose. The Devourers had come expecting to find victims. Instead, they had found the most dangerous thing in the universe. The war against the Devourers lasted 18 months and ended in complete victory for the Human-Vulcan alliance. The final battle took place in Earth's orbit, where the combined fleets made their last stand against an enemy that had never known defeat. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Apex Dawn, watching the last Devourer vessels flee into deep space. Their hive mind finally broken by losses they could not sustain. The effectiveness of the human and Vulcan forces fighting together had exceeded all projections. 2 predator species operating as one proved unstoppable against an enemy evolved to prey upon weaker civilizations. The Devourers had consumed dozens of worlds, but they had never faced anything like the coordinated fury of apex predators defending their pack. Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the final battle reports with a mixture of pride and amazement. The casualty figures were far lower than anyone had dared hope, while enemy losses were catastrophic. More importantly, the bond between human and Vulcan forces had grown stronger with each engagement, creating a military partnership that was greater than the sum of its parts. Your people fought like they were born to it, Admiral Krefka observed, his scarred features showing deep satisfaction. No hesitation, no fear, just the focused determination of hunters protecting their territory. Kate nodded, remembering the final moments when Devourer resistance collapsed entirely. The alien hive mind had simply been unable to adapt to the unpredictable creativity that both humans and Vulcans brought to combat. Your warriors saved Earth twice over. We couldn't have won this without Vulcan strength and tactics. In the aftermath of victory, both societies underwent profound changes. The Alliance had revealed that neither species was alone in the universe as thinking predators. The psychological impact of finding kindred spirits among the stars transformed how both humans and Vulcans saw themselves and their place in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Grant published her groundbreaking research on what she called convergent predator evolution, demonstrating that the human-Vulcan partnership represented more than political alliance. It was the meeting of two species that had evolved along nearly identical paths toward intelligence, cooperation, and ethical strength. We are not alone, Grant wrote in her conclusion. Somewhere in the vast cosmos, evolution followed the same path twice, creating two species capable of becoming apex predators without losing their capacity for mercy and protection. This suggests that intelligence and morality may be more common in the universe than we ever dared imagine. The cultural exchange programs that had begun during peacetime now flourished beyond all expectations. Human and Vulcan children learned together in integrated schools, developing hybrid languages and play patterns that reflected their shared predatory heritage tempered by civilized values. 8-year-old Danny Kim played war games with his Vulcan friend Nexus in the playground of the New Geneva School. Their games were more sophisticated than typical childhood play, involving complex strategies and pack tactics that amazed their teachers. But what struck observers most was how naturally they protected the smaller children, forming protective circles around the youngest students with instincts that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than learned behavior. They move like a pack, observed teacher Maria Santos, watching the mixed group of human and Vulcan children. Not because we taught them to, but because it feels right to them. They're creating something new? The integration extended far beyond childhood education. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Moore's military academy had become the model for a new kind of institution, where young warriors from both species learned not just how to fight, but when to fight and why to fight. The graduation ceremonies continued to be powerful symbols of unity, as cadets from both worlds took identical oaths of service. "I swear to defend the pack," the newest class recited, their voices carrying across the academy grounds in perfect unison. "To protect the weak, to stand with my brothers and sisters regardless of their world of birth, and to hunt only when the hunt serves the greater good." These weren't empty words. The graduates went on to form the backbone of the Apex Defense Force, a combined military organization that patrolled the borders of both civilizations and responded to threats throughout the local sector of the galaxy. The galaxy itself had taken notice of the human-Vulcan partnership. Other species approached the alliance with mixtures of respect, caution, and hope. The two predator civilizations had proven that strength didn't require cruelty, that cooperation could amplify rather than limit individual capability, and that the most dangerous hunters could also be the most reliable protectors. Commander Luke Harrison found himself at the center of these new diplomatic contacts as captain of the exploration vessel Apex Dawn. The ship itself had become a symbol of the Alliance, its crew equally divided between humans and Vulcans, who worked together with the kind of seamless cooperation that impressed every species they encountered. "When we meet new civilizations," Harrison explained to a delegation of peaceful traders from the Centauri Collective, "they see something they've never encountered before, two apex predator species that chose partnership over dominance. It changes how they think about what's possible." The Vulcan Captain Zorthek, who shared command of the Apex Dawn with Harrison, had become something of a legend in his own right. His approach to diplomacy was uniquely effective. Other species quickly learned that the human-Vulcan alliance spoke with one voice and backed their words with overwhelming force when necessary. Respect is earned through strength demonstrated. Wisely, Zorthek often said. We show our claws so that we rarely need to use them. Engineer Amy Foster had revolutionized starship design by combining human adaptability with Vulcan durability. The new generation of Alliance vessels incorporated the best of both technologies, creating ships that were fast, tough, and capable of operating in conditions that would destroy vessels from either species alone. We don't just build ships anymore, Foster explained to a gathering of interstellar engineers. We build extensions of the pack. Every system is designed for cooperation. Every interface allows both human and Vulcan operators to work at peak efficiency. Her Vulcan partner, Korth, had become equally renowned for weapon systems that combined devastating firepower with precision targeting. Their designs had been studied by military engineers across the galaxy, not just for their effectiveness, but for their underlying philosophy. A weapon is a tool, Korth would explain. It should accomplish its purpose completely and efficiently, then be set aside until needed again. The goal is not destruction for its own sake, but protection of the pack. Dr. Helen Brooks had documented the social changes that accompanied the military and technological integration. Both human and Vulcan societies had adopted new traditions that celebrated their shared values while maintaining their distinct cultural identities. The most significant of these was the Pack Day celebration held annually to commemorate the alliance. On this day, families from both species gathered for communal hunts and shared meals, their children playing together while adults shared stories of courage and sacrifice. We are creating something new, Brooks wrote in her historical analysis. Not human culture or Vulcan culture, but pack culture. The traditions that emerge celebrate what we share: loyalty, courage, protection of the weak, and the wisdom to know when strength must be used. As new threats emerged in distant sectors and strange signals arrived from unexplored regions, humanity and the Vulcans faced the future as they had learned to face all challenges, together, as apex predators who had found their perfect pack. Captain Morrison, now an admiral commanding the border defense fleets, often reflected on how much had changed since that first diplomatic meeting. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but for the first time in their respective histories, neither species hunted alone. We found something among the stars that we never expected, Morrison said during a ceremony honoring Alliance veterans. Not masters or servants, not prey or predators, but ourselves reflected in alien eyes, we found family. The recognition that had begun with first contact had evolved into something unprecedented. A true alliance of equals who understood that the greatest predators were those who chose when not to hunt. They had learned that strength shared was strength multiplied, and that the deadliest hunters in the galaxy were often the most reliable guardians. In the end, when top predators met humans, they saw exactly what they had hoped to find among the stars: worthy companions for the endless hunt through infinity. The universe was no longer a lonely place for either species, because they had found each other, and together they were unstoppable.